just felt so like I got ghosted by a book. Uh, it was a weird relationship where it was I'm like excited, but not sure if this is a trustworthy. And then suddenly it's gone. It's done. It's over. And I don't know how to feel about it. Welcome to the club. This is Cracking the Spine, solo book club podcast where I read books completely or at least mostly blind and I share my first time reactions. And the cool thing is, or at least the goal is, that you bring yours too, and that's what makes it a book club. So, heads up, there's going to be spoilers. We're going to talk about I finished the book. So I talked about part 1 was I got about halfway through and I kind of gave my reactions without knowing the ending of the book. But this is part 2. We're going to go through the end of the book and how I felt about the book as a whole. So if you don't want spoilers to this book, then you'd pause, read the book, come back. Okay. So, like I said, we're finishing up Exit Strategy by Lee and Andrew Child. It's a Jack Reacher book. Like I said in the last episode, this one was I pulled up the Libby app on my phone and was like, I need a book to read at lunch. So I just found something that was available, recognized the name Jack Reacher, but didn't know anything about it. So picked this book because it was available. Okay. So if you finish the book or you just don't care about spoilers, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment, send a voice note, whatever works. This is the whole point. This is your book club too. Book club for one is a little bit sad, but also fills my introverted heart. But I still like to hear other people's opinions because they help me understand a book more. I was going to say love a book more, but not always, but definitely understand it, see different perspectives. Because I don't want to just read in a vacuum. Like, that's no fun. It's the whole purpose of art and entertainment is to be able to share it with others. Alright, so Jack Reacher. I got to the end of the book, and I felt like I still don't completely understand the character, and it shouldn't work, but it does. So here's something I felt in the later half of the book, is that we're in his head, technically. Like, we can hear his thoughts, and we can't hear other people's thoughts? I guess we can hear other people's thoughts. So we can randomly hear people's thoughts, and it's not consistent with every character, and it's not all the time with every character, but like specifically with Jack's thoughts, they didn't feel like thought processes. They felt like what he would say out loud, but he's a quiet person, so it's written as if he's saying it in his head. But it doesn't function like a thought process. It's just kind of like fact, fact, fact. This. And it just didn't feel like a character. It went back to feeling like Jack Reacher the robot. So it was a little weird. And then we would be in his head, but he would have there's an itch, quote unquote, at the back of my brain, and these little like instinct flashes. And they they didn't feel like he was processing something and figuring it out and using his past life, his past experiences to, you know, have a eureka moment. It felt like because he's such a robot, it felt like the author needed this clue to appear in the story. And the easiest way was to have Jack just realize it. And it just felt like a MacGuffin to me. Like he's sitting there and he watches, and I don't even remember what it was, but he was watching two people fight over a parking spot. And then he has this itch, and then he sleeps on it, and he wakes up the next day and he's like, it's not about what we thought it was about something else. And it has nothing to do with cars, it has nothing to do with parking spaces, and you don't really see the connection. Like you can, it's like believable, but it's like, what? And there's the people are fighting over something. And it's just like thin, and it does it a couple times, and it just feels like my spidey sense is tingling, and then I just know something that I didn't know before. And it works, but it just feels like a parlor trick when it's, especially because it's used over and over and like weirdly used. I don't know. This is my first Jack Reacher book, so maybe it happens more, but it felt like at the first half of the book, it didn't happen at all. And then suddenly at the second half of the book, he had these itchy feelings, and it was like, oh, are you like connected to a spirit that tells you stuff? Like, it just didn't make sense. And then, like I said, the point of view stuff, like confused me. Like we were in Jack's head, but like we also had this like omnipotent view about what the villain's doing and why he's doing it. And we're but Jack isn't in those scenes. And like I couldn't tell you like it was first person, second person, third person, just because of how jumpy around it is. The fact that Jack doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like we're in his head, even though we can hear his thoughts. He feels like every single other character that we can hear the thoughts. Because there's some characters where you don't get to hear their thoughts. And it's just like, well, what is making it so some characters there's a rhyme or reason that is cut and dry. It's just kind of whatever the author chose, which is fine. Like it doesn't have to be perfectly logical setup for it to be a good book, but it just kind of threw me off that I didn't. I got to the end and was like, who was telling that story? I don't know, but like, who cares who's telling the story? It just like it kept pulling me out of the story a tiny bit. Just like, wait, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm harping on about it a lot, but it was I just remember towards the end, the bad guy is we're with the bad guy. He's doing bad guy things, and we're like deep in his head, and then we like cut away, and we're not with Jack, and we're not with the bad guy. But then the story is just narrating the scene and why the bad guy has a mind and why he's trying to. I don't know. It just felt like because we were jumping around, there was a scene where Jack breaks into the mine and he just like knows why the mine is there, how it was made, like stuff that he shouldn't know, but we know as the reader, and the villain knows because he built the mine, and suddenly Jack just knows it. And I was like, well, why would Jack know that just from walking in the front door? Like maybe he has some specialized training that lets him observe these things and make these connections, but I didn't get to see that. And it's not like he's saying it out loud, so it's just like, "Oh, I didn't see his thought process." It's we're in his head, and I don't understand how he got all this information that he should not know. And there's moments like that that we're just like, "Bleh." It just feels like we got bored. We just wanted to speed to the end. So as you can tell, I got a little, not like annoyed, but confused, distracted by that. And then it felt like there was just especially since it jumped around at the beginning and we were in people's heads and out of their heads, it felt like there was way more characters than there actually was once it calmed down and I could like follow the people more. At the beginning it felt like, oh, there's gonna be like 6 different storylines that are all gonna merge into this climax, and it ended up being like 2 or 3. And so just that point of view ambiguity made it feel felt like I was in like a fun house, the House of Mirrors, where I was like, okay, there's a lot happening and I can see it's all happening, but it's like bouncing off of these mirrors and I can't tell where it's coming from. And it just really threw me off. I got there eventually, but then like, I don't know. I feel like it caused a problem in the beginning and that kind of got resolved as I got more into the story, but then it caused a different problem at the end where it was like, I don't believe these characters because my point of view isn't consistent. And maybe that's, like, the feeling you're supposed to have, and it adds to the suspense. I don't know. That probably goes back to my I like mysteries that I can solve. Like, I can read through a book and I'm given all the clues, but I'm not, like, spoon-fed the clues. It's somewhere in the middle where I could figure out the mystery, but this one, it felt like, oh, there's some mystery shows that are, like, at the end, and they're like, "Okay, everyone gather together, and let me tell you, I know that you did it because of this thing that was never on the screen or in the page, but I saw it as the detective, but you never got a chance to see it, so I'm smarter than you." And it's just like, so frustrating. So that's how this felt, is that I couldn't solve, quote unquote, the mystery because I was being flopped about so much as the audience to try to keep up the suspense and the mystery. And that feels like it cheapened the experience a little bit. But here's the thing, it was interesting because I said this in part one. I couldn't put the book down. When I don't like a book, I get lazy and would rather watch a show than read this book. But this one kept pulling me back. But not there's some books where I'm like, okay, throw off all responsibility so that I can read this book because I need to know what happened. I'm so invested, I'm so excited, and I'm so connected, or whatever the reason is. Is I literally am like, am I done with my responsibility because I need to do this? Or I can do my responsibility later because I need to read this. And this one was like in between. It was as soon as I didn't have my responsibilities, like when I went to lunch at work, I just pulled this book up and it like filled the gap, and I was interested and I would linger a little bit longer at lunch to keep reading. But I didn't want to like read it when I got home from work, when I needed to make dinner and, do all the things. So I'm still kind of sitting with, did I like this book? Because in part one, I said when I was halfway through the book, it felt like nothing had happened. And I still kind of feel that way. I don't know. Everything I just complained about that made it feel like there's more characters than there were, and there was more suspense than there was, or there's more not murder. There was more mystery than there was. Kept me engaged, made me feel like everything was happening. And I think that is a skill as a writer, is keeping a reader engaged while little is actually happening. But the way they do it is slightly annoying to me because it feels a little cheap. It feels like, I don't know, there's some books you can read or shows you can watch where they just go slow. Like there's scenes of sheep in a field, and because of how they write it, you're okay sitting there with it. But then there's media that like plays on the social media. It plays on, that TikTok mentality of like, if it's not going fast enough, then my audience's tiny little brains can't keep up with it. And it just feels a little demeaning to be TikToked, to be treated like you are too stupid to understand and appreciate the suspense and mystery of my story. So I'm just going to bounce you around within it until, you stop noticing or whatever. And that makes me a little sad because this is a really popular, I want to say franchise. Could you call a book a franchise? It's a really popular character and his really popular stories. And I feel bad that I did not have the best interaction with it, but I was on board when they got to the end and all the timelines merged into one. I was like, yeah, I'm here for it and I'm ready to see how they figure it out and how they defeat the bad guy. And I was so invested. I was so excited. And it's like, yes, they got him, and they figured it out. And I was only mildly annoyed that I couldn't figure it out first. And then it just ends. the bad guy gets shot, and then Reacher just walks away. Like, it wasn't even a rode off into the sunset walk away. It was the character that we were in the mind of for that scene turned around to talk to somebody else for 2 seconds, turned back, and Reacher was gone. That was it. It felt like I was really bad at this in like high school and college. Is I would write a really good paper and then I couldn't finish it. So I would just say, and that's it, essentially. My conclusions just sucked across the board. And that's what this book felt like. It felt like we'd been, however they did it, they had built suspense, they had built mystery, and they brought it all to this climax. And then they just said the end. And then there's this weird, like, tacked on scene where it felt like they realized that they didn't really have a conclusion. So we get to see Reacher on the getting on the bus, and the character finds him there, and he's like, "Hey, where are you going? What am I supposed to do? Like, you left me the bad guy's money. What am I supposed to do with the bad guy's money?" And Reacher's like, "I don't know, do whatever you want to do." And then he leaves. And it's very unceremonious, and maybe because I haven't read more of the books, I don't understand. Well, it just felt so like I got ghosted by a book. uh, it was a weird relationship where I'm like excited, but not sure if this is a trustworthy. And then suddenly it's gone. It's done. It's over. And I don't know how to feel about it. So I got through the book. They come together. There's like several people die, and they realize that this guy that built the mine is trying to fabricate a war. Which I'm pretty sure I guessed in the first half of my review. Is that he's got this star witness that says this country's doing this thing and we need to stop them. And he's brought this person to the States to talk to the government to get them to sign off on starting a war. And some random CIA agent that doesn't appear until like 2/3 into the book found the lady, knew what the bad guy was doing, so tried to sneak the lady into the States to protect her. Like, if you were gonna try to stop the dude, you wouldn't have brought the lady into the States in the first place because that is what he needed to do the thing. But she brings him in anyways. So there's this like kerfuffle where they think that she's the bad guy and trying to steal the lady. I don't think they figured out it was a lady. They thought it was some weapon or something. But then the lady gets captured by the bad guy, and they have to go to the bad guy's mine to get the lady back because she's going to be tortured into starting this war. And then they come in, they find the lady. Jack shoots the guy and walks away. So it was a very roller coaster book for me. Like, the actual book was pretty good, but my feelings about how I felt about the book was very roller coaster. So, for me, at least this Jack Reacher book was a potato chip book. It was fun and exciting while I was consuming it, reading it. But when it was over, I felt a little hungry for something with more substance. And that's not bad. Just like potato chips aren't bad. I love potato chips. I will eat the whole bag of potato chips if you let me. That's just what the book is. And I think that's why, I mean, that's a great marketing strategy, is make potato chip books and then make a whole lot of them so that people are like, yes, more potato chips. And I like feeling the potato chip feeling. I hope you're following that metaphor. Otherwise, I'm using it way too much. So, it's not bad. And I was like writing my notes for this. And I was like, oh, I just kind of didn't like it. It wasn't the most profound book I've ever read. Yes. And then I went to lunch the next day and was like, I need a book to read for while I'm at lunch. Let's read another Jack Reacher book. Like looked up also because I was curious about, books at the beginning of the series versus what I read, which seems to be towards the end. And it's not really a series, but written later. So I was also curious, but even though it's a potato chip book and I've complained for like 20 minutes about how weird it was, I still downloaded another one and started reading it. So, what does that say about the book? What does that say about me as a reader? I don't know. So, the question of would I read another Reacher book? Yes, because I already am. And so far it's felt different. I'm only like 5% into the book, but it has felt different being at the beginning of the books. So, I'll find out more. He still feels a little robot-y in the book, but I don't know. I think there's more meat to his character from what I've read so far. Seems like there's gonna be more meat to him and more like explanation of his backstory, which in a later book you don't want to be reiterating the same thing you've reiterated in the first 20 books. So that makes sense. But yeah. Okay. So, question for the club. So, I talked a lot about the pacing and the narrative style, where it felt like I was being tricked into thinking more was happening when it wasn't. I'm wondering if a book has ever done that for you, where you know that nothing's happening and there's not a lot of meat there, but you're just completely hooked and you want to keep reading and you got to figure out what's going on. And like, most importantly, obviously, it bugged me, but for your experience in whatever book it was, like, did you feel tricked or did you not care and just get carried into the fun of reading a book? So, if you have experience like that, leave a comment, let me know. I wanna hear. I also would be interested to hear like what genres of books that usually happens in. I wonder if it's all suspense books or if it's many different genres and it's just a narrative style. Be interesting to hear about. Okay, next up, I'm the other book I'm reading is The Other Bennett Sister. So, if you want to read along, get started. If not, I'll see you in the episode. But that's it from me. Back to my books. I'll be reading. Bye.